Go. No, I'm totally kidding. So, what did you think of the videos? Did anything surprise you? Because I was surprised. So let's hear what you guys think.
The Red Riding Hood was a little rough.
Were you surprised by that? I was totally surprised by that.
Really?
Like, how many of you knew
surprised
that?
what?
The
Like,
Red
just the
Riding
story?
Hood? Yeah, like it wasn't really that sweet little story we heard about the girl surviving the woods. It was about her eating her grandmother.
Yes.
You know,
I was
like
listening to that falling asleep last night, and I was like, ah.
yeah.
I just, at that point, I just kind of got annoyed listening to her tell the story, especially when she's like, in the booth. Like,
She's doing some noise that sounded like vomiting.
Yeah, when she
And I
was
was like,
eating the.
Yeah, and I was like, she's like, what?
it's kind of like, okay.
So like when she walks forward and walks back, she's like,
She's very
I'm saying like, but I'm saying I would never. I'm saying that it made me want to listen, but it was incredible. Because I was like, it's impressive.
There's like a fine line because she does stuff that you remember. You know, even on the TV one, the Aunt May one where she would like click and change the channels. It's like she does things to trigger your memory, but it makes you think as a teacher too, like that fine line between being animated and energetic and just being over the top where kids are like, shut up.
Yeah.
And you're like, how do you find that? How do you ride that line successfully?
It has made me think a lot more, like just throughout the course of watching these videos about like being more animated in class. I'm not like telling stories, but it's made me think a lot about like, if I'm maybe more excited, are they more engaged? And I was just talking to, I don't know if you guys remember Maddie Hall. I had her last year as a junior, and I was just talking to her about like her college letter of rec, and we were talking about how things are going this semester. And I was telling her, you know, yeah, I'm doing the grade list thing with the juniors and whatever, and they're not filing in like you guys did. And like she said something about, she's like, yeah, but you like the stuff second semester so much better. Like you get so much more into it. And I was like, huh. Like I wonder if that reinforces that idea that like it is better even for what we do when we're not telling stories if we are more engaged. Like I hadn't really thought that they noticed that, but I have been trying. So it sounds like maybe they do, which is cool.
Well, your passion begets theirs. So
Yeah.
it does feed them. It does really that.
Well, this is like fascinating to me. So I went to, well, you were there, and the Powell's back to school night, the night before ours. That was the first time I ever sat in the desk instead of being in the front. And it was like the most fascinating thing to me to sit there and just watch 7 different teachers get their 10, and they get 10 minutes, you know, we only get 6 or whatever, but don't you agree? Like you learned, it was so interesting to go, what draws me into these teachers? And it was like, we could have cared less really what they talked about. It was just like their energy. And I don't know if you, because you had Zastro, the Spanish teacher is just
whack.
She's crazy, but she's so, you immediately go home and go, that's why she's Peyton's favorite teacher, 100%. She just has this, she made us like stand up and she taught us a Spanish song, and she, you know, and again, she was a little over the top, but you can see why as to 6th and 7th graders, that's like
She already went
Guantanamera.
the best.
She went through this course.
Yes. So it was just really, and then to come back the next night and go, what did I like about that teacher versus that teacher and that teacher, and how do I want to present myself up in front tomorrow night when it's my turn? It was really interesting.
I agree. Like, I was a little put off by the Spanish teacher, although I can see like how she gets those middle school kids to care about a foreign language that's so completely removed from their, you know, bank, that they just are so, like Mackenzie, we practice Spanish every single night. Like she wants to know Spanish, and it's crazy like that, how high energy they are. And so I try really hard, and it was interesting to come back to school night, because my smart board wasn't working. I was changing everything I was doing, and I was kind of thrown into this, oh my gosh. And I didn't, like, it seems to me that Steve Wolf expects them to go through your background, tell them your background, like every single one of them.
What's your education?
Talked about that, and I'm like, oh, okay. So instead of me saying I went to these universities and this is what I studied, I told them the story of how I became a teacher. And it was kind of interesting to see some of them were like totally into that way, and to kind of tell them the story of how I got here and what we do in class. And I presented it completely as a story, but then I opened it up for questions. And parents are like, so are you reading anything? And I was like, yes, we are. It's world literature. And all of the books are on the webpage. You know, like I was trying not to be condescending, but I'm sure it came off that way. Like, please look at the webpage. I don't just do that for fun.
Well, you're supposed to.
I know.
I tried the same thing. I tried to like treat it a little bit differently this year, and I more like I talked to Lauren Lee about this. I more like opened myself up with like, here's my philosophy, and here's why I'm doing grading differently, and here's like what I do. And I opened myself up for a lot more vulnerability by doing that. And I got a lot of really combative questions, but I also got a lot of questions like that were like, well, what will you be reading? I'm like, really? You signed a thing that said that you read the syllabus. Like,
Right.
is this really something that's a useful
You
time
don't want to
for
insult
right now?
them by rereading it again or doing.
Exactly, for the parents who like did read over it and like, but I got some of those same questions, like, I don't know, I kind of felt frustrated because I felt like they were really, like, I was trying to like, be like, here's me on like I'm letting this all out to you and like, not really a story, but kind of, and they were like.
You're right, though. So many of them are like, so how are you going to grade them? Like, and it's frustrating. And I think it's going to be that whole shift of everybody getting that understanding. Oh, school might look a little different.
Well, because that's not how they went to school.
Well, and on the same note, they've been doing back to school night for
Ever.
8 years, and it's looked the same, like, it's been looking the same, so for somebody to be different is, you know, it will take them, just like your kids have to adjust to it.
Well, I liked, oh, sorry, no, go ahead, Tyler. Go, you go.
It's not just something like I remember the history teachers, like team teaching, basically. They're talking about having a wall, and it's almost like a comedy routine. And I was watching like some of the parents' faces, and how it was funny. Like some were like, you know, just all animated and like, and then there's like people like this going like literally, I was like, it was incredible. And then these guys they were high energy, had really creative ideas, and I think some fun things, but also it was kind of, you know, and then I think people were maybe a little weary, or I know one teacher kind of really covered a lot about themselves, and they got into the Google Classroom and all this stuff that they're kind of throwing around, which is kind of fun. But it does make you kind of re-examine or like this, and then we, like in mythology, we study folk tales and fairy tales and stuff like this, and it's kind of interesting to hear. We're actually reading, you know, we read in English 9, I just had to read the cheesy summary response on Little Red Riding Hood because we all know it. So it's kind of interesting to hear different versions of like, what could I do differently to make them kind of buy in. But anyway.
I was just gonna say, you know, part of her lecture 5 or whatever, when she was talking about how, like, you know, our identities exist through our stories, and what really kind of like captured my attention was the idea of like, how do you want to be remembered, and what you put out to people in terms of how they see you, and how, I mean, the energy that you put out that draws people to you and brings them to you, and allows them to respect you and want to be, I mean, students sitting in our class that want to come to class and feel like they're doing something relevant and good, and they're gaining confidence and that sort of thing. But I try to think about that. It's not a matter of like, I don't know, just kind of what you said, Audra, like just embracing vulnerability. And like, I always tell mine, I'm like, I don't come in and like, I put on this teacher face and I'm a totally different person. I like, just like that. But I try to show my true colors, and I do. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I realize I'm not going to reach every single kid in the classroom all the time, and they might not be able to relate to me, but I want them to walk away going like, at least I understand like Miss Comp's heart, or her perspective, or like kind of the person that she is, and maybe in the long run, you know, influence people with that. But I think that's a powerful thing to think about, is, I mean, truly like how we aspire to live and what we put out there that does shape how people are going to see us later, you know, if we are gone.
I wrote that question down after, how do you want to be remembered? I wrote down, how do you want to be remembered at Arapahoe? Because I look at those speeches for the retirement that they've turned into, like they used to be really funny and, you know, heartwarming, and now they're just kind of like she did this, 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 and this, and this. And I wonder, like I can't imagine Jesse writing my retirement speech, but I wonder what you would talk about, or what I would want people to talk about when it comes to, like, I don't want it to be like, she served on the educator effectiveness committee and she was the department chair and she was really good at ordering books. Like, how do you want to be remembered?
She was really good at ordering.
Yeah.
Jeez.
How do you want to be remembered at Arapahoe? Can you pin that down? Because I think we could all say, well, I want my students maybe not to necessarily remember the curriculum per se, but what they learned about people and how to treat people, and how history affects people. I had a very weird experience last night. I'll tell you about it in a little bit. But, I want my seniors to leave my class and feel like they're ready to take on the world and they've learned enough to not be afraid of the next step and the next adventure and the next challenge. I want my 9th graders to leave my classroom ready to face those 10th grade teachers and show them what they've learned from me. Granted, they lose it after 2.5 months of summer, but I think it's really easy to say how we want students to feel about us. But when it comes to our colleagues, I wonder what that'll sound like.
Was it kind of sad too that it's boiled down to
A list?
a list or a few, it's almost like, what if you heard from like old students or
But it almost becomes
I
like
know.
it's not who you are, it's what you do. Like,
Yeah.
it's.
I guess there's no real, I like when somebody changes job, like I heard my cousin say this, we ought to change jobs more often or something of the like, because you kind of take inventory and hear what people really think about you. Like, it's pretty authentic, like, when we have those milestones in life, like at a wedding, but it seems like there's it's like birth, wedding, funeral type stuff, and the stuff in between would be cool to hear more. Because that is important. It's like when people say, like when our birthday celebrations in the office, yeah, it's like cool. You hear, oh yeah, Larry. It is awesome to just remember that, like what you said today about all the cool things that we think about him.
The 3 things I said.
But I always think about that too, and I think our department does such a great job of making people feel honored as people, because we do that for birthdays, but then we pass around the card, and I always love reading that card because people write the nicest, most honest, specific things in those cards. I love reading what other people write in the cards because it's it is a celebration of who the person is. I just think that's really, and you're right, we don't do that enough.
What's funny, I'd watched the videos before the weekend, and this weekend was the year anniversary of a good friend of mine passed away last year of cancer, and so his wife and kids, they arranged for he loved to go four-wheeling, and so she organized a trip and we went four-wheeling and we spread his ashes. And I was thinking, before I was thinking about, stories, what's the purpose? And then driving home from that, I was thinking of all the stories we told about Josh and talked about our experiences with him and ways to remember him, and how, when I get together with his family and his buddies, that'll always be there, and that's a good way to honor and remember the good things about him. So it was just kind of funny how that kind of collided with that story, because the whole time I was like, gosh, why do we still tell stories and the family part of it? And then it just kind of dawned on me as I was driving home. So it's kind of a cool way. And you're right, I think probably we should do that more when people are around to hear it.
Another question that came up was talking about, can you connect any of your personal characteristics to other family members or to the opposite of other family members? So I was thinking about my brother Pete because he's hilarious and he's sometimes rude and he's sometimes overwhelming and overbearing, and he always has to be the center of attention, all in good humor, but I wonder, am I like him? And I think I am in a sense, but that's the thing that puts me off the most about him, is that everything has to be about him, and that's what I recognize. But then I wonder, well, do I have a tendency to act that way as well? Not that everything has to be about me, but when I walk into a situation, do I try to own it? So it was interesting to think of that question.
What was the question again?
Can you connect any of your personal characteristics to other family members? So like I'm totally my mom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm totally my mom. But like then I was thinking, are there characteristics that I don't appreciate of other family members that I might have also? Does that make sense?
Well, my husband's mom, both of his mom and dad were 16 when he was born. So he would, like, if 16 and pregnant was in 1977, they would have been on MTV, but didn't exist. So his mom raised him, and our entire life, she's kind of just, she has good days, and some days she's a hot mess, or 50-year-old child, and so much, like, he raised himself. I met his dad this summer for the very first time, and we've been married for 15 years, and I've never met his dad before. Like, they finally came out, like, the relationship has just matured enough finally that, like, they asked if they could come visit, and he said yes, and we met them. So it's but so much of how he carries himself is by non-example. Like, he doesn't necessarily know what to do, but he knows what not to do. And so that's kind of a twisted way of saying that question, but it's like, he knows, like, this is how I'm not going to be. Like, this is how my dad was, so I'm going to be the total opposite of that. So it's just an interesting, like, from his perspective, I think, to look at what traits he sees in his mom and now his dad a little bit, like, that he does want or that he doesn't.
So his parents weren't together.
They never got married. So she left, like, he was born in Indiana, and I don't even think they were ever, like, even together. They just when they were dating when she had.
They were together
Well, yeah,
at some point.
But you know what I'm saying? They never got married. So they moved to Colorado when he was 6 with the mom, and he stayed in Indiana, and they were never, like, he's never been a part of his life really ever.
Wow.
So it was very interesting to spend a week with them, with, like, total strangers who are supposedly your family, but you don't know them at all.
Well, and how weird that your dad is only 16 years older than you.
I mean, Wes was 5 at his mom's 21st birthday party. Like, he went to his mom's 21st birthday party. If you did.
Wow, that's a bizarre.
Yes.
Whoop, there it is. There you are, happy.
That product placement, so.
Why is it blue water?
Yeah. Here, let me turn that.
Bro.
I hope people don't watch this. They listen
That's
to
the
it.
picture that Trotter and I have. That's his
They're
sitting
watching
room.
my face. That's right.
The whole time.
Think of one of your favorite family stories. Can you think of it? Got it? I've got one. Okay. So what would an outside audience need in terms of context or character descriptions in order to understand the meaning of that story? I can't think of a story. So I'll tell you a story, but I do have to give you some background information. So when I was younger, I have 2 older brothers, and when I was younger, my oldest brother, he's 6 years older than I am, so he and I didn't really have a relationship until we were older. And so Pete and I, Pete's only 3 years older than I, he and I always hung out. and we would roughhouse, and my mother would get so mad at us and would yell at us and scream at us. And this one night, we were roughhousing in the living room, and my dad came in, and he thought it was funny, and he joined in, and he started roughhousing with us. And then he dropped to the floor, and he grabbed his chest, and he was breathing really heavy, and he was looking at us. And Peter and I started freaking out because we were sure he was having a heart attack. So I race and I grab the phone and I dial 911, and Pete is screaming for my mom, and we turn around and my dad was laughing. And he was laughing because he thought it was hilarious, because he was trying to teach us a lesson to don't roughhouse in the house, because you never know what's going to happen. And he was laughing almost to the point of crying. I'm on the phone with the 911 operator. I was like 8 years old. It was horrible. But ultimately, that was a lesson to teach us not to roughhouse in the living room. And that story is so vivid in my mind. Like, I can picture, my dad with the sideburns, late 1970s sideburns and really bushy hair. And I can see my brother as the 12-year-old that he was at that time, and that moment of that vivid lesson of not roughhousing. So I can think of like the backstory that people would need to know. And I think it's really relatable because most of us have siblings, that we grew up with, or a friend or whatever that you would roughhouse with. And so I think, trying to make that connection, I don't know, like, is that what she's asking? Do you think, like, because this question is directly from the handbook, like, is that what she's asking for? Like, you have to go back and give some background so that
Your
people can
audience can
relate
connect.
to it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is, this is gonna sound really sad, but like, for me, trying to find a story about my family is really hard because I don't remember what it's like for my parents to be together. Like, I don't remember, because they separated when I was in 6th grade, divorced when I was in 9th grade. But like, to this day, I don't have like recollections of like, except maybe like some vacation stuff, but as like a family, I have individual accounts like with my sister or mom or dad, or things that I did to, play them and play against them. And, but it's, I don't know, it kind of makes me like, when I think about it, when you say like, yeah, I can think of things with my sister, like, I gave her the Heimlich once because she was choking out chicken bone, and, you're watching some stupid 80s movie or something, but I don't know, I just can't. It's weird how, I don't know, with time and how things change and the dynamics and stuff, like, I seriously can't think of stories like, of us sitting like around together and stuff.
That's interesting.
So,
I was just thinking the same thing because I didn't have brothers or sisters growing up.
Mhm.
And so I feel like I have no like stories. Like it was so boring to be an only child. It was the worst. Like, it was so terrible. Like,
You and Wes could be, he made his own basketball hoop, he like nailed like cardboard.
yeah, like I would like play by myself with like, yeah, I would do stuff like that, and I would like, it was terrible. It was horrible. And like you're cool, and Liz is cool, and my parents were like not at all cool, and so
That's why you got in so much trouble.
my stories are all like ones that Mike's mom has told me of Mike. Like, when you're like, think of a story of your family, like those were all stories of him growing up. Because his mom is so good at this stuff. Like, she, like, whenever I go over there, she'll have, and she like keeps this notebook. She's so sweet. She keeps a notebook of things she wants to tell us, because she doesn't want to call us every time she thinks of something, because she doesn't want to bother us. So she has this notebook of all the things she wants to tell us. And in this notebook, she'll put the pictures that she finds because she's kind of a hoarder. So she's like cleaning out her house. And so she'll like put in pictures of like stories she wants to tell us about, like things that she remembers from their childhood. She's like so awesome at stuff like
cool.
that.
That is cool.
Yeah, and like I was thinking, like for me, like to tell the story, I would like people would have to know something about my husband to understand any of these stories. Like my favorite one is so you have to know that he's like totally crazy. Like, he's like so bizarre and like flies a million different directions all the time. And it's like, I like this, I like this, I like this. And he likes things for like 5 seconds. And like, that's just Mike. And he was really little, like 2 or 3, and his mom had him up on Pearl Street in Boulder. And he was like that as a child. He like needed a lot of entertainment. And he ran around Pearl Street opening all the shop doors, screaming, "Happy day, you!" And then he'd slam the door and like run down to the next one and open the door and scream in the shop door. But it's like my favorite story of him growing up. It's like so him. Like it is the child version of what he does now.
Happy day, you.
That's so sweet.
But his mom is so good at stuff like that. I would love to be like that, to remember.
When I think that you have to like, you have to provide context in that background, because I have this one friend and she is the storyteller, but she never gives context. So you're kind of sitting there like, okay, another story. No, it's not you. But it's just one of those where you're kind of going, okay, I get it, but you could probably give me a little bit more here. I can maybe relate to it a little better. Like, we're just kind of talking and I'm not really listening. So,
What, it's those, this has nothing to do with my family, but so for physiology last Thursday, I had them do an autopsy on a pickle, do a big toe pickle, because I literally put arms and legs in a face. Because we're learning like the regions of the body and the names of the parts, and so they have to practice using them. And so I saw this story, I'm telling the
I'm
story,
gonna be in your class.
and it's like, you guys. So it was Thursday morning after back to school night, and I just was like, what details can I put in here to make it better? And so all I started with was, back to school night was last night, and so a lot of the times the teachers like to go relax afterwards. Like, you weren't drinking? All I said was we went to the Bar Louie, and I had them, like, it didn't matter what other story, they just were in, like, teachers went out together, and they went to Bar Louie and had a beer. And I was like, I didn't even say yes or no, I just kept talking and let them fill in all the details. So I parked by the fountain, and I heard a noise. And one of the kids was like, there was a fight, like, they were literally telling the story. And I was like, yes. On the grass in the middle of the fountain, there was a turf war, and I'm like, what is happening? And then I went into like, there's 2 gangs in Centennial, the Vlasics and the Colossians. And so then they knew that I was just like making crap up as I went along, but it was so funny because I was just like, it was in terms of context, like, and so then I have literally like Ziploc body bags of dead dill pickles that they have to like figure out, they have to find the injuries and like write an autopsy about this poor dead pickle. But it was, I was just watching their eyes. They were like, they thought I was so serious that just those little contextual details, like all I said was the teachers went out, but I had them and I told you they were just.
Have you always done it that way?
Yeah, but I paid more attention to like, what's the context? Like I painted the picture of like the fountain. I found a parking spot in there. The grass and heard a noise, and then there was a fight. Yes.
You weren't gonna go there, but you're like, of course there was.
So it was awesome. I was just thinking about all these details that I could put in. So it's cool.
Wow, that is
funny.
awesome.
Then they actually have to like take the pickle out and like, find the wounds and dissect it. And they're like, gross, my hands smell like pickles.
Better than formaldehyde.
Yeah, true.
That's so fun. That makes me want to take science.
Me too.
I would just start laughing and then sit in the back. There's
You're
some
gonna
plastics and there's like laughing.
Like, that's what's funny. They don't grocery shop. Like,
So they had no
so
idea.
they don't even know the brands. Like some of them are still like, what?
There's 2 kids.
Your bread and butter.
They find it at home. We're like, Mom, some plastics are running through the street.
Fighting for turf,
Right.
fighting for fountain turf. But it was
Wow, that's hilarious.
great.
Jeff Corson, I don't know if you guys have ever watched him, but he's really good at storytelling. And he tells a story about the beginning of World War I, so kids can remember like the order of it, but he tells it like a bar fight. And so he gives names that like match up to the country, so like England would be Eddie and blah, blah, blah. But it's the same way, you tell the story and they're just like, you were in our what? And then,
Yes.
like, they'll never forget it. And I had to stop doing it because he quit teaching freshmen and started teaching juniors. And every time there'd be a couple kids that had me, they'd be like, we know the story. And he's like, Jeremy, you've got to quit telling it. But yeah, like if you can tell that in a way, you're absolutely right. Like they won't forget it. And I'll have kids I had 4 years ago, they're like, Mr. Howland, I love that World War I story. I'm like, oh, the one that's totally fake. Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you remember.
No, I completely like it.
It's a mnemonic device.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, what? You lost me?
They do get like excited about that though. I'm just thinking about like I'm teaching the Crucible right now, and instead of reading the book, we're like watching the movie because I can't handle reading the book anymore. So we're like doing like close readings and like a film study. And so I skipped the first 6 minutes of the film because it's just naked people running around in the woods.
Favorite
And I was
part.
like, we can't watch this. So I'm gonna just tell you like what happens. And I'm like telling them the whole story, and they're all like, so she's sleeping with John Proctor? Yes, like they like get so excited about it. I didn't even think about that.
It's a little scandalous.
Yeah, the drama, yeah.
Well, and think of that, like how you could totally set that up to be a modern
do it
day
better.
sort of thing, like,
Yeah.
you guys, there's something going on campus and I'm not supposed to talk about it, but, I mean, you could really,
Witches.
no, but make it different than a witch hunt, but make it, like, I mean, I think you could really,
Big Brothers.
for an anticipatory set, you could really kind of create a story to kind of anchor that a little bit.
Yeah.
Even when I teach the diving bell and the butterfly, and we talk about locked-in syndrome and what that is, and I explain. So
Sorry.
years ago, no, it's okay. Oh, you have to go, Kara. You're going to be so late every
I
Wednesday.
know, I'm just to pick up.
Tuesday.
That's
That's
there today.
Tuesday?
Oh, well.
But wait,
It's the Abrams, remember she worked there at home, Sam Abrams, she's like, not worked.
It's
went.
right by my house.
Well, it's at Hopkins, that's right.
Okay.
This is the preschool Thursday,
Go get them.
so she won't charge me if she's an aide.
Nice. Nice. See ya. So the story is about Jean-Dominique Babi, and he was the editor-in-chief for Elle magazine in France, and he was about my age, and
True story.
mhm. And he, when he was my age, he suffered from a stroke, and the residual results of the stroke was he had suffered from locked-in syndrome, and locked-in syndrome is basically paralysis from head to toe. And when he was in the hospital, he was put in this military hospital in Berge in France.
Bruges.
I can't remember. And the doctors and the nurses didn't recognize that he was completely still there. He was just completely frozen.
That's terrifying.
And so a nurse actually noticed that his left eye was tracking people as they would come in the room, and he would watch people with just one eye. The other eye was totally toxic. That's not the right word. But this eye was gone, and he was just tracking people, and she recognized this. And they were literally having conversations about whether or not to take him off life support. And so then she recognized that he was tracking them, and they started talking to him, and he would just, blink and look, and he couldn't, literally he couldn't move at all. And so he had a speech therapist who designed a communication system using the alphabet. And so ultimately, he wrote an entire book by blinking the alphabet with his left eye. Isn't that crazy? And it is the most prolific book you've ever read. There's so many details. And he talks about in the book how when he lays in bed at night, he memorizes the story that he wants to tell, so the next day he can blink it, and his translator, they spent like 6 hours a day writing this book. But like I can just tell that story and the kids want to read the book. Like I don't even have to give them the book. I can just say, the book, obviously the book is little. It's not this really long novel, but even just setting it up so they know the magnitude of the book and how impressive the author is a really good way to just kind of hook them in.
That's really cool.
And I'm not sure that I spend much time doing that with other authors, you know?
Yeah.
Like, of course, I give background information on Shakespeare, and I give background information on George Orwell or whatever, but not like that, you know? And I think that it's because I'm so impressed with the author. I have several books actually in World Lit that I just am so mesmerized by the author that I give so much, like I hook them with just the story of who wrote this book and why they wrote it. And I don't think I spend enough time doing that, definitely not in ninth grade.
And there's usually something with most authors, it's pretty unique. I mean, I know that's very special, but like I think like Thoreau or some of the American authors that may seem stale, or like Ben Franklin's got another things. It would be pretty cool to story that a little differently or more. I think about other historical figures.
That's what I love about history, is like the side stories. That's what I love about college, because like it's not normal history. You learn all the side, interesting, cool, like backstories. So I always try to find those, because that's how you book the kids. It's not
Not the one.
the stuff they read in the book.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, because they don't tell a story. The book is so dry. But yeah, I love side stories, like the little known stories.
There's the facts for the days or whatever.
And the knots, you know, the stuff that doesn't always put America in a good light. Oh my gosh. But, you know, it's kind of controversial.
Can't teach that.
Oh, yeah, I know. I hope there's no.
Well, I was just thinking about that, like when she was talking about fairy tales and like the redeeming power that fairy tales hold. And, you know, that's why I think Disney is so genius. I mean, most of Disney's content came from fairy tales all across the world, you know, but they're showing children for the most part, and adults, but more so children, like when she talked about conflicting desires, you know, and then you've got to show the dark side of life in order to show the good part of it too, and that balance and equilibrium that has to exist. And why sometimes I feel like, well, I question, I'm like, should I be sharing this because I'm gonna tick someone off, or, you know, I affect someone's constitution about how they feel about, you know, something or what they believe, but I think there's something to be said for you have to see, like, you have to see those conflicting desires, you have to see those moral dilemmas, you have to see the bad and evil that exists to find the silver lining, to find hope and good
Yeah, that's
things,
the
you know?
Sorry to interrupt, but that line, I was just looking at the notes, so it says you have to believe in the truth of what you're saying. Which, and you're, I think you're, and then the words after that are kind of right where you were saying, like, ultimately you believe in that truth, which is cool, and there's different vehicles to get there.
Right.
And that's where like good and bad, or the balance, and I think that's what's really cool about, you know, the stuff last week, I wrote that really poignant story, and what a, you know, down the road, or whenever you do it, what a great story to tell about standing up for, believing, or reading that little
Right.
story and that kind of thing, which I think is cool about that. Yeah, the truth, I don't know. You know, what the because I feel like sometimes I justify and qualify things so much that, you know, it takes away from kind of just getting into the subject of what it is versus, or, you know, and I feel like I do that, and it just doesn't matter if I verbalize it, but I think it takes away from something. I don't know.
Well, and truth exists in dichotomy, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, truth exists in opposites and paradoxes and, you know, all of those things that, I don't know, I like that idea, you know, being able to show those sides. And whatever it is they're telling, not just from like fairy tales, you know.
Don't you think sometimes though that you can use that to hook your kids, you know, by saying, you know, I've had parents question whether or not I should teach this. Like I when I teach little brother second semester, I'll say to the kids, you know, in years past, I've had parents ask why I teach this book, because it has sex in it, and I like be really silly about it, you know, or I'll say, oh, there's a bad word or whatever, and the kids react to that like, oh my gosh, like parents don't want us to read this. you know, and I'll explain why I find it valuable, why I think we should look at it, you know, why I think that they're mature enough to handle it. And oftentimes they're like, well, you're right, I am mature enough to handle it, you know, and then we talk, of course, about their moral compass, and if it makes you uncomfortable, skip a few pages. A few pages in a 200-page novel is not going to take away from the entirety of the message. But I think sometimes you can kind of use that to hook them.
Well, it always goes into like, you always, I mean, I don't care whatever it is we're doing, like, we always have to relate it, like she said, to that wider context. Like, there has to be that immediate function and purpose and relevancy and just social applicability to what they're reading. And I mean, as a reading teacher, things that are, you know, kind of told and suggested about how kids feel about reading, like that's a big piece. Like they want to know, like they do want to know why they're reading it. They want to see value in what they read. And I think that helps dictate, like, I don't know, how they feel about learning and how they feel about exploring and discovering for themselves, and how all these stories kind of interweave themselves to get to like big picture ideas that they are going to encounter in their lives. And it's so important that, I don't know, it just reminded me of that. Like, it is important that they see value in what they're studying.
Did you hear that? Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I don't really have any more questions. You guys have any other questions or comments about what you saw in the video? I was very surprised by the Little Red story.
Yeah.
I really was.
I knew there were a lot of different versions. I just hadn't heard a lot of them before.
Well, and I knew, I know, Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, obviously there's more connotation than a little girl skipping down the hill to grandma's house. Like, you can put a lot of adult context in that. I never would, you know.
Well, you never looked at it like that. As
You
a kid,
didn't, no.
You know? I mean,
Isn't it funny though to look at things like that, or
Yeah.
like see it around the rose?
if she takes this path,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, really? Like,
Yeah.
that's over analysis. Like, English teachers analyze, but come on. I wanted to tell you, Jeremy, last night I had a very strange experience with my 9-year-old. So we're reading this book called Wonder, which is an amazing book. But yeah, but there's an additional chapter that's been written since the book was published called the Julian chapter. And Julian was this boy, he has a deformed face, and Julian was his bully. And so it's kind of Julian's backstory as to why he's the way he is. And he's at his grandmother's house in France, and she's talking about her experience as a child, and that there was this boy who she referred to as crippled from polio, who she didn't treat very well. And then she was talking about, the Germans were coming to round up all the Jewish kids to take them away. And so we got to this point where Trudeau, who is the boy who rescues her and takes her to his village, and I had to explain to my 9-year-old about the Holocaust last night. And it was really, I had to give him that backstory so he could understand what was happening in the story.
was it tough for you to tell?
It was hard because I didn't want to scare him, So I started by saying, this is a really long time ago, and there was this really bad man, and his name was Hitler, and he was the leader in Germany, and this is what he believed, and this is what he did, and as David, I could see David's brain kind of cranking, how could he get people to do this? How could he get, he was definitely thinking about it. And then when he went to bed, he's like, I can't stop thinking about that. And I really tried to make it the G version that I could. I said that he would kill them, but I didn't go into
How
all of
they
the
did
things. But it was a really hard conversation to have with him. I'm like, can we just talk about girls and kissing instead? That's a way easier topic than this.
We didn't learn about the Holocaust in school.
middle school, I would guess.
I did, well, maybe. They
Eighth
get
grade,
it.
maybe?
Yeah, they get it junior year.
Yeah, but I know they come with it.
They know, yeah, they know what it is.
Sure.
I think it must be covered in middle school, but it was really,
You know, and that's funny because I don't know why, but just like the last year or so, I've reflected and I was like, history is so dark.
Yeah.
Like that might be why kids don't like it too, because, you know, you look at what we teach freshmen, it's like, okay, imperialism, Spanish-American War, World War I. Booming 20s, that's why everybody likes it, because everybody's happy, and then you go into the Great Depression, and you go to World War II, then you go into the Cold War, you go to the 1950s, which on the surface is wonderful, but underlying it's awful. And then, you know, you go into Vietnam, and I'm like, holy cow, it's just like one thing after another. So yeah, it's,
you should kind of adapt your story. So like when you're talking about the 1950s or the 1960s, you could say, and Dairy Queen was invented.
yeah.
You know, and like have like
Yeah,
good
the cars of the 50s are
Disney
awesome.
came out.
Antidepressants were their highest.
But so that you like have the good with the bad, because you're right. Like you think about, you know, and like all of the literature we teach in ninth grade honors first semester is depressing.
It's
All
Most
of
of the
it.
literature.
It's
all of it.
so dark. Yeah. You know, so it's like,
Principles.
why?
You know what though? But you're right though.
It's
You have to seek out the good stories. Like, I don't know if you've ever read A Higher Call, but it's a World War II story that's about a German fighter pilot that basically escorts this B-17 bomber that's not going to make it past the Atlantic Wall. Like he was the top fighter pilot in Germany, and basically he sees this plane just like putzing over. And he hops in his plane and goes after. He's like, "Oh, this is gonna be easy." And then he gets up there and he's so amazed that the plane is even still flying because like the rudder's ripped off the back and it should not be flying. And then he starts thinking like, once he hits the Atlantic Wall, which is basically the German defense for anything getting into Germany, he's like, it's gonna get shot down. So he makes the decision to escort that plane out, knowing that if they figure out what he's done for. And it's such a cool story though. And then later in life, they get back together and they
Wow.
like talk to each other about why did you do this? And it's amazing. So stories like that can take something very bleak like World War II. But yeah, you have to seek it out because you get depressed. Like I teach 9/11, I'll just do a day of 9/11 and I walk out just drained at the end of that day. I'm like, that is so brutal.
But I wonder if you could flip that and show some of the positives.
You
You
can find
always-
stories of
always can.
survival and
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so you're right, you have to do that because otherwise we're humans.
But there's so many
This
great
was
redeeming things that
sucks.
I'm sure David will learn with this context. You know, this happened, but it's a story about, I don't know what the story's about, but I mean, there's friendship, there's
It's a great story.
sacrifice, there's,
That's one of his good stories.
Yeah.
It is. It's a great
What's it called?
story. Wonder. It's so good. I'll bring it. You can read it
Wonder.
with all of your other stuff.
And that, is there another book?
Well, all
too
of
that
us.
offers?
What do you guys
It's just chapters of other kids' points of view.
Right, but I mean, is there, I can't remember if that author wrote another story.
I don't know.
I'm reading, I'm like 1% more on like the book I was reading this summer.
Yeah, I hate that. At the end of the summer, I'm always like, yes, I'm loving this, and then I get to the school. I'm like, yeah, I can read like a half a page tonight.
I did not like the book, one of the books I read this summer.
what was
All right,
that?
I think we're done. Wicked.
I
Bye.
could not get into that book. My mom bought me the whole series.